More than likely, if you're watching this video, you went to YouTube and typed in something like making money from thrift stores or thrift store reselling or even thrift store flipping. And you may have noticed that there's not a lot of videos out there that break down the whole process. Well, that's what we're going to try and do today. I'm going to show you how to not only find profitable items at thrift stores, but also how to sell them online. Quick disclaimer, I'm probably not an expert, but I have been doing this for a really long time, and I've made some pretty good money flipping stuff from thrift stores. So take the advice that I give you with a grain of salt, and hopefully you can find something that you can use. First of all, why thrift stores? Well, honestly, I think it's one of the best ways to start reselling. There's a low barrier to entry. There's not a lot of cost there. Typically, you can find some pretty good undervalued items that you can flip online for a profit with some decent margins. Not only that, they carry almost everything from sporting equipment to shoes to pots and pans to everything. You never know what you're going to find at a thrift store. And because thrift stores carry such a wide variety of things, it can absolutely be daunting when you first walk in and you're wading through a sea of donated goods trying to pick out what may or may not be valuable. So my advice here is to know before you go, do your research before you get there, and I've got 3 tips for that. Number 1 by far for me is YouTube. There are thousands of other reselling YouTubers just like me who will actually take you to the thrift store, show you what they're buying, and show you what it's going to sell for. So definitely watch a few videos before you go. Number 2, kind of the same thing as Instagram. Search and follow other resellers. They post tips and tricks every day and also stuff that they've sold and stuff that they've found. Once again, a great way to learn what you can be on the lookout for at thrift stores. And finally, if you're just starting out, I would definitely say to start with what you know. More than likely, you have some kind of hobby, some kind of activity that you participate in. And while you may not be an expert, you probably know more than the average Joe. Like if you're a fashionista, you probably know the most expensive clothing brands. If you're an audiophile, you probably know the most expensive stereo equipment. For me, it's golf. I play golf. So I'm always on the lookout for the most expensive golf clubs. So you've done a ton of research and maybe you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Maybe you've got a notebook full of brands or items that you can be on the lookout for, which isn't a bad idea, by the way. But it's not time to go to the thrift stores yet. We've actually got to find them first and come up with a plan. So let's go back inside. Now, finding thrift stores in your area or even a new area is actually pretty simple. I like to go to Google Maps. I type in thrift stores. I search that. I search Goodwill, and then I search Salvation Army. And the reason I'm searching all 3 is because sometimes when I just put in thrift stores, the Salvation Army and the Goodwill doesn't show up. So I'm going to write down all those addresses of the thrift stores that I want to go to, and then I'm going to plan a route. Now I can use Google Route Planner, it actually works really well, but I like to kick it old school, like 1996 old school, and I actually use MapQuest, and yes, they're still around. And I really like their features because it lets you optimize between shortest distance and shortest time. You can choose whichever one of those you want to use. And now that we've got our route, we can head to the thrift store. So when I go into a store, I like to take kind of a systematic approach. I go around the outside edges and then I weave my way through the middle. But you can honestly start anywhere you want to. As a matter of fact, I might would suggest if you're just starting out to start in the area that you're most excited about or in that area of expertise that we talked about earlier. More than likely, if you find something cool there, you're more motivated to keep going to find other things. But how do you know if those things are actually worth selling online? This is your best friend, or more specifically, the eBay app. It's going to let you search and figure out exactly how valuable that item is that you just found. I'm going to use this Honeywell thermostat as an example. I actually found it at Goodwill the other day for $5, which seemed pretty cheap, but I wanted to look it up on eBay and see actually what it would sell for. Now, lucky for me, this box actually has a barcode, so I was able to scan the barcode with the built-in eBay app barcode scanner, and the results popped right up. Now, if you're looking up something that doesn't have a barcode, just be as specific as possible and type everything in manually. Now, when these results pop up, I want to filter them out to be as close to the actual item as I possibly can. So I'm not going to search for new thermostats here. I'm going to search for used ones because this box has definitely been opened. Now I'm going to hit the filter tab, go down to used, and when I do that, I can see that there are 18 that are for sale on eBay currently. So I go back to the filter tab, go all the way down to sold, and that's going to show me how many that have sold on eBay in the past 90 days. As you can see here, there's 27 results. So 18 listed and 27 have sold in the past 90 days. That means there are more selling than are actually for sale. That's pretty good. And that's actually called sell-through rate, and something that you want to pay attention to. It's going to kind of tell you how fast an item might sell. For example, if you've got an item that there's 100 for sale and 2 have sold in the last 90 days, you probably want to leave that behind. And you can see here prices were kind of all over the place, but it looked like in good pre-owned condition, this thing was selling for 45 or 50 bucks. So a $5 investment was definitely worth it for me. and actually sold in a couple of days for $58. So I paid $5 for that thermostat and sold it for $58, and to me that was absolutely worth it. There's a pretty good profit margin there, and that's definitely something you need to establish for yourself. Each person is different. Maybe you want to go out and buy garden gnomes for $6 and sell them for $10. Now just remember, after fees and everything, that's probably only a profit of about $2. So is that worth your time to take pictures of it, list it, and then ship it when it sells? Or maybe you only want to sell items for $100 that you bought for $1. That's certainly possible, but not probable. So you have to establish what's worth it to you, how much you want to make on a particular item to make it worth selling. Okay, so you've been to the thrift store, you found a few things, what's next? Well, honestly, if you don't list it, you can't sell it, right? And we're going to talk about eBay because right now they're the #1 selling platform, and in my opinion, it's the easiest. Now, I'm not going to go over the whole listing process because, as the title says, this is Reselling 101. This is the basics. But I do want to go over 3 main points of things you should pay attention to when you're listing stuff on eBay. #1, and probably the most important part of listing an item for sale, is to provide good photos. This is the first impression that your item makes on a potential buyer, so you want it to be good. You want to take good photos by placing an object on a blank background, providing plenty of light, but you also want to take accurate photos. You want the buyer to know exactly what they're getting. So there's no need to Photoshop or glamour shot your pictures, unless you just want to. #2 is pricing. You definitely want to price competitively. If you price it too high, your item will never sell. If you price it too low, you're leaving money on the table. So what I like to do is go to those eBay sold comps that we looked at earlier, take the first 5 or 6 most recent ones that have sold, take an average and price it somewhere in there. That hopefully lets me be priced competitively and also sell something relatively quick. And #3, fill out those item specifics and provide an accurate description. Those item specifics are going to help a buyer find exactly what they're looking for, and an accurate description is going to let a buyer know exactly what they're going to get. So make sure you try and fill out as many as you can. So we've got our item listed. We can just kind of sit back and relax and wait on it to sell, right? Well, I probably wouldn't. This is the time when you want to work on your inventory management system and also your finances, because anything you sell, you got to pay taxes on it. Now, as far as inventory goes, you see I've got these bins back here. I use eBay's custom SKU feature. When you're listing an item, it lets you put in a custom SKU. For example, if I'm listing a t-shirt, I can put custom SKU of H, and I know when it sells that it's in that bin right there. Now, as far as financials go, it's a little more complicated. All right, I'll openly admit that I am the world's worst bookkeeper. That's why I hired a full-time bookkeeper, and that may not make sense for you, especially if you're just starting out, because it's expensive. But do start somewhere, even if it's just a spreadsheet that keeps track of your business expenses and what you're making and what you're selling on eBay. You got to start somewhere because, like I said, you got to pay taxes on these things. And you don't want to be scrambling around at the end of the year. Now, another option that I highly recommend is My Reseller Genie. If you're not as hands-on as a spreadsheet, you want a more automated process, they've got a product that I think is awesome. Not only that, starting Black Friday through December 7th, they're giving you 50% off if you use my code down below. Definitely recommend you trying them out. It's a pretty automated process, kind of easy once you get it set up. Really cool. Congratulations, you made the sale. Now it's time to package it and get it shipped out. And honestly, I could spend about 3 hours telling you how to ship 1,000 different items, but really there's only one rule that I live by. Assume that whatever delivery service that you're using is going to take your package and throw it off of a 2nd floor balcony. If your packaging can withstand that, you're typically good to go. And as far as printing a label, you can actually do that right through eBay when you sell the item. Now, obviously, this is just the absolute basics, or a starting point, if you will. For more in-depth videos and also examples of thrift store flipping, make sure you subscribe. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. We'll see you next time.